Good evening and hello. This is Excuse Me Miss, where I am looking at a novel for children and young adults. It's called Into That Forest. It's written by Lewis Nowra, and it's a novel that deals with what happens to two children, Hannah, who is 6, and Becky, her best friend, who is 7, when they suffer a tragic flood that takes them away from Hannah's parents. They are rescued by 2 thylacines, and from there they are taken into the forests of Tasmania and are raised by the 2 thylacines, male and female. They spend 4 years with the Tasmanian tigers, as they're known, living that life, learning to hunt with them. At the end of that, they are rescued by Becky's father and return to civilization, but they have to then readjust. I'm going to read the first section because it's a really fantastic look at the way language shows us how a character is built. It's told from Hannah's point of view, and at the time of telling, she's 76 years old, but she's looking back at her life as a 6-year-old, and that's very, very important to the narration of the story, or the narrative of the story. Me name be Hannah O'Brien, and I be 76 years old. Me first thing is an apology. Me language is bad, 'cause I lost it and had to learn it again. But here's me story, and I be glad to tell it before I hop the twig. I were born in Tasmania, born not in a hospital, but here in the back blocks, in this actual house. It is crumbling around me ears now, but the roof hardly leaks, and if I chop enough wood, I can heat the place when it snows. Though I live here by myself, I am not lonely. I got a wedding photograph of me mother and me father when men wore beards and sat down for the picture while me mother wears a wedding dress and stands beside him. And there's me father's harpoon hanging from the living room wall with its cracked wooden handle and rusted blade. Me only new thing is the cabinet with a radio in it, which Mr. Dixon down the general store gave me. I can't hack it. There always be mongrel music in it, like it's shouting all the time. Anyway, I'd sooner yab it to myself than listen to those voices inside that box. I reckon I need new curtains. These are a bit dusty and fraying, but they keep out the summer light when it's so strong it hurts me eyes. I think me uncle built this house. He gave it to me father. It were a present. At that time we were the only house for miles and miles. Me father wanted to live in a place near the water. If not the sea, then a river. Me mother liked rivers, and so the house were a give and take for the both of them. From the veranda we could almost touch the Munro River as it flowed down to the sea. I had no brothers or sisters. I don't know why. They were a problem, I think. I'd hear me mother crying buckets in me father's arms and hear him say like to a child, "There, there, we got Hannah." Me first memories, well, the thing is, and this be strange when I think about it, but me first memories, they really are me father's. Maybe not even his memories, but his stories. I'd drop into a swoon of gladness when he came to me bedroom to put me to sleep, and he'd tell me about his adventures. He were a whaler, and when he came back after travelling the seas, he'd tell me these stories about places and things he set his eyes on. I suppose me mind made them me own, so I thought it was me, Hannah, in the Philippines, and I could see 2 black men in a boat, the sort hacked out of a log, and they were waiting for a whale shark. When it came, one fisherman jumped out of the boat onto the back of the whale shark and rode it like it were a brumby, and at the same time he stabbed it on the back till it croaked. In the South Seas, in water so clear you could see right down to the bottom where queer fish swim, A fisherman jumped into the sea with a banana in his mouth. He spitted bits of the banana at a huge groper, which gobbled them all up, all the time coming closer and closer, till the fisherman caught that big fish in his bare hands. There were another time when me father were at the bow, and a sperm whale, big as a house, were harpooned, and the whale boat stuck fast to the wounded whale, were dragged along at a wild speed towards the sun on the horizon, till the monster carked it of exhaustion. One time me father were at anchor in Western Australia, where he seen a gin on the beach, and she was singing a song, an uncanny song, like you sing to ghosts, but it called to the whales. One whale, a minke, came to shore, sucked in by her song, and beached itself like a sacrifice for her. On the Tasmanian coast, near South Bruny, a whale were winched into the flensing yard, where a big puncture were cut into the back of the creature, and an old man, he crippled with tuberculosis so bad that he walked on all fours, were put down into it, like a plug down a hole. He was pulled out half a day later, and all the workers were thunderstruck because this fellow could walk, and he was straight-backed. He had been cured. It's just a short section, around about 2-3 pages. But it's interesting because it deals with language. As I said, we're being told this from the point of view of a 76-year-old who tells us that she lost her language. So we see a very simplistic language of a child in an adult. But we also get to understand the language of her era. Words like mongrel, which we don't use a lot today, is featured, and carked it, and the word gin to describe a female Aboriginal. Again, it's not very common to use that today. It's a very Australian book, talks about brumbies, so it's very settled in its idea that it's an Australian novel, but it's also lets us know that there's a lot of travelling going on. And so when Hannah is having these memories, when she uses memory as story and story as memory, you get that sense of being outside her even while you're with her. So we're getting to see through her language the experience of another as she experiences it. And Hop to the Twig, that was another one it's interesting to think that we're about to read a story where she's 6 years old, but she's already contemplating her death, and this is something that happened to her a lifetime ago. I also wanted to talk about the idea of language and the way Hannah expresses herself. This is the first page. So, no, that's the title page. That's the first page. Immediately goes on to the second page, and it ends with a bit about the curtains before talking about the house, and then the father's experiences. So we start here about the father and his experiences, how he got the house, the different places in the South Seas in Western Australia and Brunei, and it ends here with the bit about the cure, the tuberculosis cure. Now, that's basically one paragraph, and it takes nearly 2 pages, one paragraph. And you may know that the idea is one paragraph, one idea, and yet there's quite a few ideas, but it's one memory that she has made into her own. So it's very interesting set up there that she's telling us this story that's not actually her own, but she has ingested it like a memory. There's a lot I could talk about just in those opening paragraphs. It's a very good book, so there's a lot to discover on the site. So a lot that it informs about whaling. The novel is informed about by its links to the whaling, its links to the loss of the Tasmanian tiger. The loss of the Indigenous population is very much a background feature of the novel. And there's a lot that we can touch base with and see how it's informed by previous literature, and it uses the idea of feral children to inform it. But there's also, it's a very Australian novel. It doesn't lose its Australian aspect. It takes the idea is somewhere new. So it's a fantastic novel. Stay with the site and all the best.